No matter what you do in estimating, having the pictures that support what you write and having the pictures that support what you show your customers is critical. And a lot of that is about photography, and just having a few simple tricks up your sleeve is going to get you the best pictures. Larry, let's talk about the type of camera or the types of cameras that repair centers and even adjusters should be looking at for their photography.
Well, you don't want something on the low range, you know, a $50, $60 camera, and you don't really need a $5,000, $6,000 Nikon or Canon professional camera for, you know, weddings or action shots. Your subject is not moving, it's standing still. You want to get something that, you know, has fairly decent battery life, has probably an SD card in there so that you can store a lot of photos on there, and you probably want, you know, some good flash with it, and that's really about it. You want to make sure also most of the point and shoots, like this one here, it's a little bit bigger than a point and shoot versus the candy bar size, has a macro lens on it or a macro ability so that you can get some close-ups and stuff like that. And you want to get one of the name brand ones so that it stays for a while. If there's any problems with it, there's always support, and there's usually something online on how to use that particular camera to give you some tips.
Right, now what we're talking about when we mention macro, so we hear that a lot, and a lot of people kind of look at me and go, well, is that little flower sitting on the camera? And the answer is yeah, and that's generally what rules out most of your cell phones or your iPads or whatever is your photography tool, because they don't have that feature. Now, there is on the iPhone some external clips you can buy that add lenses and give you those features, but still getting the focus is hard to do. And what it does is it just affects your focal length. So if you have a macro application on your camera, you're going to be able to get within an inch or so of the damaged part that you're trying to show, which is really great when you're in those tight engine compartments, trying to show something under the suspension, or very small damage to a part, etc. Now, if you don't have that feature, about the closest you're going to be able to get is 9 to 12 inches. And a lot of times that makes it hard on certain cars to show damage, even show scratches, or show the mechanical damages that are there.
Shops don't need to spend $1,000 on a camera. Between $100 and maybe $250 tops, you know, especially if the guys drop the cameras a lot. You know, you want to, and you can buy sometimes in bulk. I got one shop that I can sell for that every tech's got a camera, and they go around, they grab the cards and take, you know, for each RO, so that comes in handy.
Right. Now, when we're talking about documenting the damage, there's a couple of things that I like to do in a photo routine, and you and I talked about it earlier about documenting the vehicle itself. So before I even start to document the damage for my estimate, I'm going to take some pictures that document the car. What are some of those photos that the estimators need to be taking?
Well, each state has sometimes different rules or regulations why you have to take photos, so check with your own state law, but basically, for your own protection, you follow a general rule of you want the license plate, you want to take the public VIN, which is the one in the windshield, you want to then check that also to the sticker, the VIN sticker on the B-pill, the door, in the glove box, wherever it might be on the car. You want to get a picture of the mileage. You might also want to start the car if it's okay to start the car, meaning that the oil's inside the car, it wasn't a rollover, you don't want to cause hydraulic lockup. But let's say a normal collision, nothing's leaking out of the car, you start the car, let it run for a minute. You can see in the picture the RPMs are at about 1,500, 2,000, but then you'll see lights on the dashboard if there's a malfunction indicator lamp that's present because there's something wrong with the engine. Maybe it's check engine light, maybe it's an airbag lamp on, so at least then you have a process of seeing that. You want to get the mileage, obviously. And then you might want to take a picture of the model, meaning the Benz that we have here is pretty easy. It's a GLK 350. But let's say you have some of these GMs or the Toyotas. What's an LS? What's an LT? What's a GXE? What's an SE? So that sometimes can change the parameters of what's standard on the car, and not every database estimating system will decode the car totally. It'll still ask you sometimes an option model.
Now, as we start to document the damage, and I'm going around the car, I've found my damage, and I'm going to start taking my photos to match what I'm estimating. What are tips to photographing the damage?
Well, you got your standard four-corner pictures. Everyone knows that. Some states, like New York State, requires at least four-corner pictures. My suggestion is take 4 corners at bare minimum. If you can get the full front, the full rear, and full left and right sides, you can take those. If you can only get 2 of the 3, take those. The more pictures you have, the better off you are. Once you're done with the overall pictures, you want to start attacking your damage now. So if we have a vehicle like this and it has some damage to the bumper cover, the headlight, the fender, and goes onto the door, I would start like I would write my estimate. I'd start with the bumper cover. The big issue that I see a lot of people take is they'll take a picture of the bumper cover, which is down low here, and they'll take it from this position with the camera kind of angled mostly like this. It's on an angle, so it's going down. You're not getting a full view of it. The best thing to do is to either bend down like into a catcher's position or hold the camera low. Obviously, some older people or some people who have bad knees may not be able to do that. You can still see through the viewfinder in the back. You can still take the photo. You want to have the camera looking level like your eyes would so you can tell the story. And I wouldn't take the close-up of the damage. I'd take it a little further back, maybe come in a little bit, and then if I have some scratches or some sort of deformity that I need to really take a close-up picture, I can go to macro or drill into about 9, 12 inches and keep in that area, take my photo. After I'm done with that, just like you write your estimate, I go to the headlight, get photos of that. I'd open the hood and take photos of the back side of the headlight while it's still attached, and then once it's off, then you repeat the process. And that's the idea behind following and telling the story.
Now, you mentioned a little earlier some tips about how do we get the deformity in, whether it's graph paper or some people take rulers or whatever. What are some tools or some things that a shop can make or have on hand that'll help them show damage in pictures when the color of the car makes it hard?
Well, I believe it's ASA, I think, has a free printable lined paper that they put out to their members. You can just get graph paper at any Staples or anything like that, any office supply place. You can lay out your own Lexan piece of plastic you can have, and you can just lay tape lines on there. The idea is to give some sort of contrasting area, so when you do a reflection off the car, you can see where now the line is straight and then all of a sudden it goes wobbly. You know that there's a dent there or something. You can also use a car, or in this case, later on, we're going to see the frame machine is reflective on the side of this black car, and it's straight going through. So I know that there's really no deformity to the door. If I wound up seeing an area that kind of waved around, we would see a deformity, or know that there's a deformity in there. My notes would reflect that, what kind of damage is there.
Now, we've talked a little bit about, kind of some of the tips and the tricks for the pictures, and let's talk a little bit about some of my pet peeves. So you and I both have spent over our course of our careers a lot of time in courtrooms having pictures blown up. And one of the things I can't stand is when I have a picture that has the person taking the picture in the picture. So
and it's always the picture that you actually needed, and they're blocking it.
Yeah, exactly. So how do you have, where you take the pictures with some of the reflectiveness of some of the colors in the cars and stay out of the picture when it goes into your file?
A lot of times I think it's the mistake of not knowing your camera, realizing that you do have a fairly decent size backing to this, that you can see a lot of area. You can stand off to the side. Sometimes just angling the camera to the subject can also help. Once again, at eye level, but angling it left or right will take you out of the photo, but also still give you a good shot of what damage you're trying to interpret in the photo. Because that's what you're doing. You're trying to interpret something that somebody else is going to have to look at afterwards. So you need to tell the story through the pictures. So it's important to look at your viewfinder, not always look like you're looking through your eye and like, oh, I'm going to take it from here because this is what I can see right now. And that's a lot of times people don't realize you have to get at eye level.
Now, one of my other pet peeves is overexposing of a picture. So the shops seem to set the camera on that automatic mode where they don't feel like they're making any adjustments. And I get a lot of overflash, overexposed, and can't see anything. What are the effects of when you overexpose a picture?
It's a crappy picture, and it's always, once again, just like the person being in the picture, or their finger, a lot of times being in the picture, the camera will focus on your finger and miss the back shot of the damage you actually wanted, so you wind up with a blurry back picture, and I got a beautiful picture of a finger, usually not manicured. So the big thing is don't have your finger in the picture. Use some sort of pointer right on the subject of where you want to shoot, not in front of it, because the camera's going to pick up on that. Don't have yourself reflective, and then obviously with the overflashing, you got to take a look at the picture. Sometimes the flash is needed. Sometimes it's not. And you also got to realize through, once again, experience, shutting the flash off while it's on auto and taking a photo sometimes might look dark on this little small 2-3 inch screen, but then when you get it on a laptop or a desktop computer, the picture looks fine. You could always lighten or darken a picture later. It's not for court purposes. It's really just to prove that you have damage there. So you can lighten or darken the picture.
Right. Now, one of the things to keep in mind when we talk about light is a lot of times the flash is always going to overexpose your picture, and that really happens when I see shops trying to take pictures that are within the engine compartment or around the suspension or in the undercarriage of the car. We feel like it's so dark in there already, the flash turns on, and I just get this bright burst of flash under the car, and the camera kind of forgets what it's supposed to be taking a picture of. Having a handheld light or a secondary light source under the car with you to take those pictures, even if you're outside in the sunlight, can make a big difference in the pictures that you're taking and the overall quality.
Even if you have the flash on, auto, with that light bouncing off whatever it's bouncing off the car, will sometimes shut off the metering in the camera. So even though it's on auto, it may not fire the flash now because you have this extra light source. And the LEDs probably give off the most amount of light, which will really come in assistance if you're trying to backlight something or trying to overflood the area with some light so that the camera can take the picture clearly for you and represent what you're looking for.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about some tools to have, but there's a couple of tools that I see used frequently that are really helpful in pictures, and those are rulers and gap gauges. What benefit do they have to repair?
Well, the gap gauge gives you a quick assessment of the distance between panels, obviously. 3 to 6 millimeters, depending on the manufacturer. Some manufacturers actually produce exact tolerances of gaps, but you follow that normal 3 to like 6 millimeters in areas. I mean, the left side versus the right side should be relatively the same. If I have 2 millimeters on one side and I have 8 on the other side, when I'm looking at a fender to door gap, obviously the nose is probably shifted over, more than likely. BMW puts out a really cool step type of hard plastic gap gauge. It's the same numbers on both sides, so it's left side and right side, which is handy. And then any type of rulers really comes in handy to give you height measurements, and also you can use it to do some quick measurements underneath a hood or even wheel position. But I like it for shops to actually take a photo of the car together with a ruler in front of it, so we kind of know where the height damage is on the car in case later on there's a subrogation case. It actually helps out the insurance company, or sometimes like what I have to do through Lang Technical, I have to do investigations sometimes, and that would really help out a lot, those extra photos of a ruler in there, so now I don't have to get an exemplar vehicle to try and do the same type of measurement.
Now, when we're talking about proof and what you're doing, one of the things that's often missed in photography of shops is proof of replacement when it's compared to the damaged part. We always get maybe an after repair picture, but we always forget to have those side by side, and that's really important to you.
Well, it's tremendously important. I have a pet peeve about shops leaving labels on replacement parts, but in essence, a lot of times it proves they replaced the part. I mean, it looks sloppy, it's not good. You take a bumper cover off and there's labels on everything, but it proves the shop changed it. Well, how can you do that? Well, you should really take off the labels off suspension parts and stuff like that, and sometimes it gets forgotten or overlooked, but you want to have 2 pictures of the new part installed and the old part. What also comes in handy is if the adjuster and or estimated damage assessor in the shop actually took a picture of the damaged suspension part, and now we have an undamaged suspension part. Well, obviously you had to change it. So even if the tech misses it, you still have the new arm in there, but somebody took a picture of the damaged part beforehand. Once again, it's all about proof and documentation and proving that I did do something to this car. Just like when it's on the frame machine, you want to have your measurements there before, during, and after, same type of thing. Always have proof of documentation.
You know, if you've been in this business very long and all that, at some point in your career you've had an argument over a repair or replace issue on a car or something that's already been done and delivered, and now after the fact you're having a discussion on what should be paid. And it usually always comes down to photography. Or if you've been audited recently under a DRP program, usually your photography is the thing that's there. Your estimate was dead on, but if you couldn't prove it with what you had in the file, it tends to make that auditor a little cranky. So take time to learn to get better with your photography. Familiarize yourself with your camera and the options that it has. Invest in a few additional items to make your pictures better. And remember, the simplest thing of all is just review them before you finish and upload them, and ask yourself, if I didn't have the estimate, if I was only looking at the pictures, would I be able to pay the amount that I'm requesting? And if that's the case, well, you're probably going to get paid for everything that you've got on that line, right?
Like I've always said to people, put yourself in the insurance company's shoes. If you hit somebody's car and you had to pay out of your pocket, and they came to you with this proof that you're showing the insurance company, would you pay them? So if I got a picture of it, you better pay me. If I don't have a picture of it, well, now you got an argument that, you know, maybe I didn't take care of it, or maybe I didn't do it, or there could be some doubt. So you always want to have a photo to back it up.
Right. So if you have any questions about cameras, go online. We have a couple of videos about camera selections and things for videos, and camera selections for photography, tips and tricks and some things that are there, and a little checklist that'll go along with your photography, some things to think about, and a little sample of the tools that we mentioned in the video that you may want to consider having in your shop. Thanks.